All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gridiron Zeros podcast.
Go yourself.
It's episode 71. It's the NFL draft recap. I got my radio voice on today, if you couldn't tell.
Well, you're all jazzed up because we also have a couple new drops on the board, don't we?
We got a couple.
Oh, Shucky, Ducky, Quack, Quack.
We got all the Shucky, Ducky, Quack, Quack drops that you need for this week's draft recap. We're going to jump into the draft and kind of tiptoe around the Lions because we're saving that for the last part of the draft.
Draft recap extravaganza for the Lions?
Yes, absolutely. That's the last part. First part, draft recap. We kind of touch on what happened in the first round. Don't go really deep into the draft because nobody really cares about second through 7. So focus on the first. And then we get into our first divisional offseason recap. We go through the teams, see who they added, who they lost.
Just overall thoughts, impressions.
Impressions, coaching hires, coaching fires, all that good jazz. And for this week, we do it for the AFC West. So Chargers, Chiefs, Broncos, and Raiders are the topics of discussion this week. Let's get into it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the NFL draft is come and gone. Overall thoughts right out the gate, Al?
Oh, Shucky, Ducky, Quack, Quack.
You know, adding that to the board, that was going to be the first thing.
Yeah, it was very Shucky, Ducky, Quack, Quack, if you ask me.
I'd say the quarterback thing, I think, turned into a little bit of Shucky, Ducky, Quack, Quack.
It did. It really did.
And by that, mainly just mean Will Levis. I don't think anyone else was a huge surprise where they went, but Will Levis, I think, was the big surprise to me.
Well, it wasn't a surprise to me. I had him going to Tennessee just way later, right. 30 picks later. Do we want to go over anything from the mock drafts, considering how awful they ended up being? And that's not just us, ladies and gentlemen. That's everybody.
Well, I think Houston trading back into 3. Well, first off, 1.
It was Bryce Young. Everybody had that.
Yep.
I would say a majority of people had that. And then 2, Houston drafts C.J. Stroud. And then everybody had Tennessee pulling up to 3 to get a quarterback. I called it. As soon as all 3 of us had that situation happening, it definitely was not going to happen.
Well, we see the banner on ESPN come across trade, and we're like, okay, here we go. And then Houston jumps back into the top 5.
I thought it was a mistake. Houston traded Arizona traded number 3 overall and number 105 overall to the Houston Texans for the 12th overall pick, the 33rd overall pick, and the 1st and a 3rd in 2024. So overall, good haul for Arizona.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess we kind of talked about it a lot when we were just watching. I mean, for Houston, do you think that they overpaid a bit here? Do you think that it was a little rich for them to get back up to 3? And I mean, they basically gave away an additional first round pick and then some to get back up and get their guy.
Well, you got to think about it this way. I would say they traded 12th to get 3, and they gave up another year of a first, which I know a lot of people could be saying that they traded away Caleb Williams. I don't think Houston is going to be that bad this year.
Yeah, that's really the question: is if they can't
be
they're as bad as last
shit.
year. If they're as bad as last year, and even if it's a top 5 pick,
yeah, like that's brutal.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah,
but
that 3rd hurts. That 3rd is not great either.
But we kind of saw it happen with Denver and LA. I mean, they traded high round picks to get their quarterbacks or whatever, and then first round picks, thinking that they're going to finish later in the first round. But they ended up being top 10 picks this year.
Yep.
So, and that really bit them in the ass, and that was really good for the teams who got those picks. And so, I guess it all depends where they finish. They've been so bad in the last couple of years that It's kind of hard to imagine them being a polar opposite this year, but they got 2 franchise cornerstones with 2 and 3, hopefully, and maybe they won't be as bad as they've been the last couple of years.
No, I don't think so. And I also want to say, this is kind of a good segue into what I wanted to talk about. Did it feel like there was just an absurd amount of trading going on?
It was a lot. It was definitely a lot. I feel like there was a good amount
Compared
last
to,
year
like,
too.
last year.
But last year, I think we saw more players be moved for picks rather than like pick swaps. It seemed like to me, at least in the first round.
So Houston trades back up to 3. Arizona gets 12. Arizona flips 12 to Detroit. They give up 12 and 34 for Detroit 6 to draft Paris Johnson Jr. They take the 33rd that they got from Houston in the original trade and then traded that to Tennessee for 41, I think pick 100. My chicken scratch handwriting is failing me right now. 72 maybe. 41 in number 72. And then a 24th third, which they used to draft a linebacker and a corner. I think Houston ended up trading 105 that they got from Arizona to Philadelphia for a 24th third. And that's not even talking about the moves that Detroit made.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that later.
I will just say on the Cardinals super quick, they trading with Detroit going up to 6 and then drafting Paris Johnson. Smart move, I think, because they traded back. They got a lot of value out of 3, and then they moved back up. And right before, we saw this a couple times in the first round, just like waves of positions would go. Mm-hmm. He was the first domino to fall for offensive linemen, which the Cardinals seem to always need. And protecting Kyler Murray, is paramount right now. So, or when he gets back, rather. So really smart for them to trade back up and get the best one in the draft, arguably. And I think they did a really nice job. Now, where do we go from here? Because there's a lot of directions to go from here.
I do not know with Arizona. I think a lot of it. So I think that they did a great job of securing assets for next year, right? Like they had a good draft, but I think they did a great job of trading the value that they had this year in exchange for next year. Part of me thinks that they could possibly just be like, let's see what we got with this current roster. And if they end up giving us Caleb Williams, then we'll figure it out. And I'm not saying that they'll draft Caleb Williams, but a team is going to be willing to give up a whole lot of picks
until next draft media cycle when Caleb Williams is a bum, and then it's next year's quarterbacks. They're going to actually be great.
It's the next athletic freak to come out.
Yeah.
So who knows? But
they got a tough year in front of them.
They got a tough year in front of them, 100%. There's a lot of holes on that team. They're in a tough division. Kyler is going to be out for a portion of it. Hop wants to leave. Who knows if he'll get dealt?
He's making it sound like he might stay, but who knows?
He's been very quiet about it recently. So let's also talk about, we kind of alluded to it earlier, but 33rd overall, Arizona trades that pick Tennessee. Tennessee moves up to go get Will Levi.
If you didn't listen to last episode,
I'm still not calling him Levis.
Yeah,
just because I want to call him Levi. What do you make of this? As they elect to not go wide receiver until like round 5 or something, if that, and instead they draft a quarterback using one of their day 2 picks for the second year in a row, even though they still have Ryan Tannehill.
I think it's a value question, really. I mean, like they clearly are at the end of the run that they've had here the last couple of years. It seems like they're kind of getting ready to reboot a little bit. And I don't think they love Malik Willis.
Who?
Well, so now they have, another guy in there who's also going to require some developing, but I think he's definitely further along quicker than Malik Willis and probably has a shot to be a better pro. It's just the value. I don't know. They didn't take him in the first round. That says what you need to know, really.
Yeah.
I mean, if they really thought he was like the franchise game changer QB or whatever, I think they probably would have taken him with their top 15 pick. They didn't have to do anything. He was sitting there, and
they had to go up and get him.
Well, in the second round they did.
Yeah.
In the first round, he fell in their lap, so they passed on him.
In the first round, they elect to draft Taylor Lewan's replacement at the tackle spot. And, my stance on Will Levi is that he is weird, but I don't know if he is Mike Vrabel weird.
Oh, Shucky, Ducky, Quack, Quack.
Like, Vrabel is a certain kind of weird. Not really weird, but a certain kind of weird.
Isn't everyone who comes from the Patriots tree got a little
bit of weirdness in them?
Yeah.
Quirkiness, I guess you could say. I don't call Will Levi quirky. He is straight up like, stay away from me, freak kind of behavior.
Because we're best friends. I love you, my dude.
So I don't know. I still feel iffy about that. I think it's a better fit than Malik Willis was. And I think he'll easily beat out Willis for QB2. But at the same time, you only get Vrabel for so many years, right? At some point, he's not winning Super Bowls like Belichick. So even when he has down seasons, it's noticeable.
Yeah, but he's been
good, but at some point,
pretty darn good for them.
If he has a couple of stringers in a row, they're going to get rid of him. It happens to everybody.
You know what it is? It's like one of those situations where he's one of those coaches where if he got fired, he could hire the next cycle immediately.
Oh yeah,
he'd be one of the
100%.
first people hired somewhere else. So I think he's fine. I think the GM-ing of the last 2 years has been really the main problem. Now they're just kind of entering all right, we're going to have to kind of blow things up. They adjusted the roster quite a bit, and
see, I don't know. That's the thing I don't know, because if I'm Tennessee, I'm trying to grip onto this for dear life. Your division is still, by all means necessary, completely open.
I'd say the Jags are.
Jags are on the come up, but let's not get crazy. They barely got into the playoffs over Tennessee last year.
Yeah, but they definitely found their footing later and are trending upward. So
absolutely, but your window has now basically closed, in my opinion. And especially, I feel like they could have done something with this draft. But at this point, I don't know. Like, you didn't really get any weapons for Tannehill. You got some help on the line for Henry, but I mean, other than that,
just wheel circling a little bit, wheel spinning.
They're not doing anything to go above and beyond and try to get their team back to the point where they're competing for the first overall seed in the AFC.
Well, let's talk about last year's first overall seed in the NFC. Who a lot of people are saying had the best draft of any team. And once again, a masterclass of being an NFL GM with Howie Roseman. The Philadelphia Eagles have a slam dunk first round.
Very good.
Landing Jalen Carter. They do move up a little bit to get him, but
a spot. Some
teams passed, shockingly, and he was there. So they get aggressive and they go get him. Total fit, 100%. The Georgia Eagles at this point.
100%.
And then they round out the first round with Nolan Smith,
who also kind of slipped, right? I mean, like, he was projected
in our mock,
top
he was
15.
Top 10. So
yeah,
definitely not good.
Go yourself.
They had a great draft.
It is a little ridiculous how many Georgia players.
Yeah.
But and adding DeAndre Swift to the draft weekend haul also is kind of funny, but I'm a little biased, but I feel like I'm just completely out on Swift. Now you definitely are. Yeah.
Now 100%, but the guy can't stay healthy. We'll get more into that later. But Jalen Carter to the Eagles is my favorite pick in the first. first round. I mean,
Best value in the top 10.
Best value in the top 10. It falls right into their lap. They have a great defensive line already. It's only going to get better with this guy. I mean, good luck running on this team. You got Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter, two behemoths clogging up those lanes on the front.
Well, not to mention, they have veterans on that line
Fletcher
still
Cox,
too. Brandon Graham.
I don't know. Did they bring Sue back?
No, because I don't think they did. No. But yeah, this team, they got their veterans kind of on short-term things, and then after this year, they can go ahead and just transition fully to the younger guys. But I mean, how can you do better than that in the interior D line when it's going to be that cheap and that high talent? Now that you're paying Jalen Hurts, we talked about it in the preview episode, but you're going to have to get creative with how you fill the gaps when you're paying him so much money in those other pivotal spots. And this sure seems like a way to do it. It seems pretty smart to me.
And, everybody might be saying, it's his questionable character comes into it, and that's why he fell. I think Jalen Carter will realize the opportunity he has here. He's going to the Super Bowl runner-ups, and he has a chance to play.
He had that. He definitely had that aura about him on draft night when he got picked. He was pretty emotional. I think just seeing him in that situation, I guess I'd probably lean on your side of things, saying he'll buck up to the opportunity and hopefully it's straight to business from here on because he's extremely talented. But
I'm sure he will, and it's going to be scary if he does. That is going to be a tough defense to go against. Was there any other picks in the first round that you liked, Al?
I mean, I hate to really keep it all on quarterbacks, but I just want to talk about one more.
Sure.
Anthony Richardson to the Colts is really interesting.
I don't
know. I just feel like, we all picked him going there.
Mm-hmm.
He fell to them, or not fell, but he was there. They didn't have to make any moves to get him. The Colts might be the only team to me that was like the roster is bad enough quarterback depth chart wise that he might start week 1.
Oh, I'm sure he will.
You know what I mean? Like that was the only team that I was like he's one of those guys where you probably want to develop him.
You didn't see him going to Carolina or Houston, I assume?
Houston, I saw maybe it was either going to be someone traded up to 3 and took him, or he fell to Indy, and I didn't think he was going to get past that, which is why we mocked him at 4. But I said on the preview show, I really do think them taking a big swing after all these veteran duds and the potential of him being great with a good O-line with 1 or 2 great players on it. Jonathan Taylor, Shane Steichen, Eagles OC, now the head coach.
Who obviously coached Jalen Hurts for the last couple of years, so he knows how to work with a mobile quarterback.
Anthony Richardson, this whole build up to the draft was definitely my most intriguing quarterback on the board. I don't know if I would say he was the best, but he definitely was the most interesting. And I think he landed in the most interesting spot because he'll probably play right away. He's got weapons around him, so I'm excited to watch him play. And he's not in that good of a division. I know the Jags are pretty decent, but who knows?
I mean, Colts roster, maybe it's lost its step, but
they took a big step back.
There's a lot of talent on that roster still. Like, I think people forget about them, and I feel like, I could be wrong, a large part of their woes has been quarterback play the last 2 years. So I don't know. I think of Richardson. I don't think he's going to be anything special to start out. I really don't. I think there's going to be a lot of growing pains with him. So maybe year 2, maybe he can take a big jump and they can kind of regain. But again, we're kind of falling into the same situation with Tennessee. That window is closing pretty damn fast.
Yeah.
All you have is a wild card loss to show for it. So,
I guess lastly, draft wise, did you want to talk about the receivers at all? I know a couple of them. There was a big run on them.
4 straight wide receivers. One went to Baltimore, Minnesota,
Chargers.
Chargers and
Seahawks got
Seahawks
a JSN at 20.
At 20, which was definitely a little bit low. I did not have him in my top 15, I think.
I was shocked that he fell to 20. I feel like he was talked about quite a bit leading up, so that was kind of a surprise. I just think there was so much frenzy around O-line and some of the defensive players, and obviously the couple QBs that went too. So
yeah,
receivers had a nice little run there. I'll be curious to see if how they all pan out. I know that the Vikings got someone to pair up with Justin Jefferson, possibly
Jordan Addison,
possibly depending on how contract talk goes. I wonder if there's a chance that Justin Jefferson and him don't play together that long. It'd be pretty interesting to see how that goes. But
what do you think would happen? They would let Jefferson go?
They already declined his fifth-year option.
Probably because they're going to give him a freaking massive bag. It's the same thing. Who else just declined their option?
Jordan Love, and then he got a 1-year deal.
Oh, I'm not talking about that bum. There was another player that was. Oh, it was Chase Young. Chase Young. Commanders declined his 5th year, but I think they'll. Well, I don't know. Chase Young's a little bit different. He's constantly injured. So
give me money me, money now.
And Bijan.
Bijan, it was a really interesting pick. The Falcons were a really good running team last year, and that was with Cordell Patterson and Deontay Foreman. Will this take them above and beyond? Who knows? It just
that was Cordell Patterson and Tyler Algier. Foreman was on the Panthers.
Sorry. Oh, that's right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bijan has to stay. Here's the thing about one. We'll get more into this, but a running back who's going to a team that is very good at running the ball.
You can already hear the inflection how fired up Lucas is about this.
The Lions. Their back is basically up against the wall right out the gate. Like, they have to come out and perform because you're coming into a team that did it pretty damn well with a lot less last year. But they're pegging you to be a guy that is taking them above and beyond. So all I'm saying, like, Bijan could be really good at 8. He could be really great. I mean, the guy could be an absolute stud workhorse back. And they're giving him the ball all day, and he is just tearing apart defenses. But if he's not, then it could be a horrendous pick. It could be a really bad pick because not only do you pass up on all these other positions that could provide a lot of value to you and your team, you went with a position that you did a lot more with a lot less last year. So I don't know.
Falcons sure love those high-end skill players. Kyle Pitts, Bijan,
their last
Drake London.
I feel like I know he had Mariota throwing to him for most of the year, but the last 2 have not panned out the way that they probably would.
Oh, well, now they got Desmond Ridder. So
no, that's nonsense. That's garbage.
Shall we move on to our first off-season preview?
Off-season recap, because now we're basically in the season.
Off-season division preview. Recap.
Recap. Let's call it a recap, because we're going to call it a preview when we get closer to the season.
I'm going to mess this up every sentence in the show. So.
Will Levi. All right, let's go ahead and let's get into it. All right, Al, we're talking AFC West this week, home of the Super Bowl champions, Kansas City Chiefs.
I'm so excited!
Felt like they got a little too much going on for them at the draft, if I'm being completely honest.
Well, how often is it that they host after a championship? I mean, that doesn't happen very often.
They get what they get. They get a parade. The whole city celebrates. They don't get a second parade where the whole NFL universe is coming together.
I think Mahomes deserves it. Ain't Andy Reid, but whatever. I'm sorry. Was there not enough Bill Belichick's dog making draft picks or like
I get
random
that
ass cutaways.
They have to
Not
do
enough.
a bunch of dumb shit to get people to. I don't understand why they have to do a bunch of dumb shit to get people to watch. Just have the draft, or don't televise it.
You dumb bitch.
I don't know.
You're not a TV guy. We're not. We're an audio format.
Audio format and PFF app. Chiefs. Let's take a look at their offseason. It was a very quiet offseason.
I don't know. They lost some guys.
I was thinking more so additions.
Okay.
And then, obviously we'll talk about additions where those guys went.
Then you got to say it was a quiet offseason additions-wise.
Additions-wise. Obviously they lost a lot of people, but we'll talk about that when we get to these other teams, right?
Here's all that matters to me.
Jawan Taylor, 4-year, $80 million contract, Al.
Offensive tackle.
All right, there is they lost who did they lose? I know that we just talked about not saying who they lost and just talking about the additions, but they lost Orlando Brown to the Bengals. Thank you. They lost Orlando Brown. They bring in Jawan Taylor for a 4-year, $80 million contract. They bring in Charles Omenihu on a 2-year, $16 million contract.
Edge rusher from Niners.
Edge rusher. And that's probably Frank Clark's replacement, right? Quite off-season, but what do you have to do? You brought in the one replacement that you needed on offense.
Yeah, I feel like if they hadn't just first off win the Super Bowl, but second off win with guys like Isaiah Pacheco, being a dominant presence,
Jerick McKinnon
drafting really well. They're like an anomaly team where they can just have talent go out the door and it seems fine. They came into this year without Tyreek Hill. And they still won, so they'll probably be all right.
They'll probably be all right. The one thing that you do have to be nervous about if you're a Chiefs fan, unfortunately, you do lose your offensive coordinator, and you bring in Sir Matt Nagy as the OC. I know that he went back to the Chiefs. He went crawling back into his hole after he got ran out of Chicago. Is there any worry there for you, Al?
With Matt Nagy?
Calling the plays? Well, I don't know if he'll be calling the plays because I know Andy Reid is very hands-on with the offense.
Yeah, it's not really. I don't want to like discredit Bieniemy. I don't want to be like, there's not going to be a difference. But like, Mahomes is Mahomes. Andy Reid's Andy Reid. Travis Kelce's Travis Kelce. How hard would you have to fuck up to take a huge step back with that talent?
He was not the OC when he got hired by Chicago, right? He was quarterback's coach. I want to say that's the case.
I think he was OC, and that's why Bieniemy got put. I think Bieniemy got moved up to OC when he left, I believe. But
this is why we need a producer, somebody to look this shit up for us. I'm too lazy to look it up, so we'll agree to disagree. Either way, do you think if the Chiefs continue this high-powered offense that they have been doing, do you think he gets another headshot?
Yeah, maybe. I think he's not another Super Bowl run team, and the numbers are bananas. Maybe
not bananas, but Chiefs par.
Right. Yeah, I think there's a reasonable shot. Dudes like Adam Gase got a second run.
That is eye-opening.
But he apparently had a Peyton Manning connection or something, and Peyton Manning was a big part of why maybe he got the opportunities he got. That's speculation here or there, but I just wanted to say with the Chiefs, the departures besides Bieniemy that are notable to me would be the two receivers that they lost. Juju goes to the Patriots, 3-year deal. Apparently the Chiefs did make him an offer, but just not as good of an offer as New England. I think there's some injury concerns there with Juju. So
there's some play concerns with Juju there too.
And Mecole Hardman leaves.
That one's an actual hit.
He goes to the Jets, and they're never-ending receiving room just to make Aaron Rodgers happy. But seriously, they got like 10 receivers. It's crazy.
Just brought in Randall Cobb too.
Yeah. So the Chiefs.
I know where we're going with this. they will pluck 2 wide receivers out of the dumpster and make them stars.
Yeah, but don't you remember last year hearing, oh, Sky Moore, he's going to be electric when they drafted him in like the 3rd round. They're like, oh, Kadarius Toney, they traded for him. He's going to be they didn't really do much.
Yeah, but
I don't think it's that easy to pluck up people. You need Kelsey's always the 1A,
right.
but you do need some decent receivers to.
They still have Lazard, right?
No, Lazard with the Jets.
Oh my God, that's right. I'm gonna have to get like a full recap of myself on like everything that I looked up.
You're thinking MVS, and yes, I think they do have MVS still.
That's who I was thinking of. So they still have MVS. Tony, in my opinion, has not. Yeah, he has not flourished yet. He hasn't been able to stay completely healthy, which even on the Chiefs, he was not able to stay completely healthy. So that's definitely the biggest red flag with him right now. But when he is healthy, I think he's shown some good flashes.
But you know what I'm saying, right? It's just like everyone's just automatically, oh, it's fine. It's fine. But I guess it was because they got rid of Tyreek Hill last year, and it was fine.
The offense was still able to move. There's a lot of mouths to feed on that team. You think about Sky Moore, I mean, I still don't exactly know what he is. If he's a running back or a wide receiver or what, if he's a punt returner. Not only do you have the wide receivers, but Panchenko and McKinnon are also catching a good amount of passes out of the backfield too.
McKinnon's also coming back. So.
Yeah, so there's a lot of mouths to feed on that team, and that's why it works so well. Big Dog is going to eat every week. That's Travis Kelce,
right?
But the role players are going to do their job. They're role players, and they make plays, but they're not Tyreek Hills, but they still get the job done, right? So. I think,
maybe Mahomes and Andy Reid want a real challenge this year with limited options and going back to Matt Nagy.
I was going to say,
they want a real challenge.
If there's one thing that's going to blow this offense up, it's the guy who's calling the plays.
Are we giving grades? Are we giving grades to people's offseason?
I mean, no, because the Chiefs, they didn't have a great offseason, but can you blame them? Right?
No. It's a trend I've noticed amongst people doing similar breakdowns. So I just wanted to ask with our first team so we can decide.
How about we rank them?
Like in their division?
The division. Because I'll give you my number 1 overall.
Well, let's do that at the end so we can talk all these through and then we can really rationalize where we're going to put those.
All right. Let's go to the Raiders. The Raiders had a very interesting offseason.
They're going to be my easiest one to rank.
Yeah. So the Raiders, Derek Carr leaves to go to New Orleans. They don't get anything in return for him.
Well, they cut him.
Yeah. They don't get anything in return for him.
But, yeah, I mean, that's a great start.
They signed Jimmy Garoppolo to a 3-year, $67.5 million deal. That's really interesting.
It sure is.
You're putting your eggs in the basket of Jimmy Garoppolo. Do you feel? Let me get through the rest.
There's a lot of people we still talk about.
Josh Jacobs gets tagged.
That surprised me, honestly.
It's really interesting. The top 5 highest paid running backs, I don't even know who they are. I feel like that tag couldn't be that expensive though at this point, right?
It's probably peanuts compared to giving him an actual deal. So.
Yeah. They bring in Jacoby Myers and Philip Dorsett. They bring in Austin Hooper and O.J. Howard.
Well, the reason they bring in O.J. Howard
because Darren Waller
dealt to the New York Giants.
Am I crazy? Did they also bring in Brian Hoyer?
Well, they were going to try and retain Jarrett Stidham, but they could not. I think Hoyer went back to the Patriots. I think he's back in New England again.
They signed 4 former Patriots this offseason.
Not seeing Brian Hoyer.
What do you make of this offseason now?
I'm seeing another Patriot guy on here, Philip Dorsett. He was technically on the Texans last go around, but he's a Patriot.
Two former Patriot players from McDaniel's times, Jacoby Myers and Philip Dorsett.
Yeah, it really, this whole experience has a very personal layer to it for for
Both of
us two
yeah.
recording this podcast, because we've endured this. We felt a GM and a coach say, no, we got to make New England here. I
gotta get my guys.
I got to get my guys right. I'm the smartest man in the room.
Yep.
In what universe is pivoting to Jimmy Garoppolo over Derek Carr a good idea? Now, the only thing that you can say about this is that it's a better financial setup, because Derek Carr was about to be locked in for a substantial amount of money for a couple years with his deal on the Raiders before they cut him. They were going to owe him a lot of money, which is why they moved on, and they just didn't feel like he was worth it. They bring in Jimmy G. Jimmy G's contract is structured basically so that they can get out pretty reasonably. They're not going to owe him a ton of money if he's just banged up the whole time. But like, it's just it's worse than a sidestep. It was like when it's worse. It's worse than when the Colts got Wentz. It's worse than that. It's like it's a significant sidestep, backstep. Jimmy Garoppolo is not special.
How much better is Derek Carr than Jimmy Garoppolo?
He's better. He's got a better arm for
100%.
sure. He's got
100%.
a cannon on his arm, and he stays healthy. I mean, that's the big thing. Like, it'd be one thing if the Raiders went, all right, we got Garoppolo, and then we're taking Will Levi, or we're trading up to go get Anthony. I know, Anthony Richardson. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if they're going to develop, they did draft a quarterback in the later rounds.
Who'd they draft?
Don't ask me his name. I don't know. It was a late round pick, but they did draft somebody in the later rounds, the 5th round, I believe. So they have someone to develop. I really think
was it Tanner McKee?
Don't know.
I think it was the kid out of Stanford.
They really liked Jared Stidham. They did, and he's a Patriot guy. That's why. But no, he went to the Broncos. He's the backup for Russ now in Denver. So just between that whole debacle, trading Darren Waller to bring in OJ Howard
and Austin Hooper.
I don't think they got a bag for Darren Waller. I think they got a 3rd round pick for him or something. It wasn't even that good. Like, you're trading a Pro Bowler and a cornerstone of this team for the last 4 or 5 years for not very much in return, and you replace them with, I guess, your guys. I don't know. They're so confusing to me, but also I completely understand. It's just trying to recreate Patriot way, and the guy I feel the most for in this whole situation is Devontae Adams. This dude is
pretty brutal.
He's walking into a buzzsaw for the last couple of years of his career, so it's pretty brutal.
He wants out of Green Bay because Rodgers wants out of Green Bay, so he leaves. Rodgers doesn't leave Green Bay, so he goes and plays with his old college quarterback for 1 year, and they deal him because he's not fitting the mold. I mean, what the hell is Devontae Adams going to do? They're bringing in all these chump wide receivers for him to play with, chump tight ends to, gum up the works.
Maybe
or Josh Jacobs gets tagged. He's got to go through another year of putting himself on the map.
Maybe next year we'll see Devontae Adams traded the Jets. Not this year, though.
Wouldn't that be something? God almighty. Watch out for them.
There's one other last, just, I don't know if it's notable or not, but it's interesting to me. At one time, very, very high 1st round draft pick, Clee Farrell, gone. He left.
Do they have a single 1st round draft pick on their roster still from like the last 5 years?
Leatherwood's gone.
They're either
Henry
in
Ruggs
jail or cut.
Gone. Yeah. Not good.
I mean, it's absurd. It's absurd what that franchise has done in the last 5 years.
What do you think about them drafting?
We didn't even bring up Gruden. I mean, the whole team has just been a dumpster fire for the last 5 years, ever since they moved to Las Vegas.
What do you think about them drafting Tyree Wilson, pair him up with Crosby and Chandler Jones?
That's great.
That's probably the most sensible thing they've done all offseason, I feel like.
That was really good.
I feel like we're having a really hot, bad take on them, but like I'm telling you, man, it's just because we've seen it before. We've seen it unfold.
I don't give a shit. They're gonna suck this year.
And by the way,
my words,
McDaniels, his one other run as a head coach with the Broncos, horrible.
Awful. And he was horrible last year.
So I don't understand why
it wasn't Derek Carr.
I don't understand why everyone's just thinking like automatically like they're going to be something soon because
no,
I don't think so.
No. And if Garoppolo goes down, goodbye. Kiss the season goodbye.
Which is more than likely.
It's happened year after year. Like, oh God.
All right. Well, how about we move on to a team that had a little bit better of a offseason so far, especially when it comes to head coaching. Big splash in Denver last year with acquiring Russell Wilson. That went pretty horribly, as we all know. But now to try and remedy that situation and hopefully get things back on track in Denver on offense, because defense was actually pretty good.
Defense was top 5, I think.
Sean Payton comes out of air quotes retirement and is now the head coach of the Denver Broncos. To me, I think that's bar none the biggest change for them.
It's going from ground zero to the top floor.
Yeah, well, hopefully, right? I mean,
hopefully. I feel like I might know where you're going with this. Does he still have it? Has the game passed him by? He only sat out, what, a year? 2 years? I think 2 years.
No, 1, because it was Dennis Allen's first rodeo with the Saints. So
1 year. He sat out 1 year. Did the game pass him by? Probably not. But
he was in the studio and he was around it. So I think he's a great coach. But bringing him in and having Russell Wilson on this contract and everything, like, and this team built the way it is, like, their expectations are where they were last year. It's like
Super Bowl.
We're going to win a Super Bowl. Yeah. That's where they're at. So yeah, they're serious. They're seriously invested with this current group. Notable additions. I think Mike McGlinchey, right tackle from the 49ers, is probably the biggest.
Huge.
And I think everyone in Broncos country is loving that.
A 5-year, $87.5 million deal. And then they bring in Ben Powers, the guard, for a 4-year, $52 million deal. Massive upgrades to the offensive line, right?
They also add a runner to go with that offensive line, a very underrated player, Samaje Perine from the Bengals.
Perine was huge on the Bengals last year. He stole a lot of points from me and my boy Joe Mixon.
Great pairing with him and Javonte Williams.
Love
I think
that.
It's going to be great.
That's thunder and some quicker thunder, if I'm being completely honest. And not only do they improve the offense, but they continue to improve on the defense by bringing in Zach Allen on a 3-year, $45.75 million deal. Zach Allen, I think a little bit, I would say he's more on the lower totem, lower part of the totem when it comes to like elite edge rushers, but he's still a very, very serviceable edge rusher. Like he'll be able to help improve, rushing the quarterback, making him get the ball out of his hands a lot faster, and then letting your DBs, your elite secondary, go make the play.
And Randy Gregory's still there, right? He's had a couple-year deal with.
I think
them,
so. Yeah.
So pair them up together. Yeah, I'm looking at their departures right now, and really nobody is jumping out to me as a major loss for them. I think it's just
so far,
right?
The rumor is that some of the wide receivers, one of the wide receivers, Judy or Sutton, they're gonna go. So they brought in another guy,
Marquez Callaway. Well, they signed him in free agency from New Orleans, so Sean Payton is familiar with him. They did draft somebody too. It was later on.
Yeah, much later on.
Sorry, flubbing through names here, folks. With the later round guys, but
we don't pay attention after the first.
I don't think most of America does, to be honest. No, man, I think it's good. I think it's a good offseason. You addressed the two most important things, I think, to get Russell Wilson back on track. You improve the O-line, and you get him not only an upgraded head coach, but like one of the best in football.
Best in the modern era.
So you really are hoping that you can turn this thing around with him, and if not, it's Jared Stidham time, I guess, because what else can you do?
Who knows? I also do want to note that they bring in new OCs, they bring in a new OC and a new DC. They bring back Vance Joseph, who I think was a great hire for DC.
Yeah, well, weird because he was
weird.
the coach, but yeah,
It's
it's
a step down, but he's working under Sean Payton, so how much of a step down can it be? Guy was obviously out of his league. And then they bring in Joe Lombardi. This is what worries me with the offense. They bring in Joe Lombardi, who, if you're unfamiliar, he was the Lions OC for a little bit while Stafford was not doing great. And then he went to the Los Angeles Chargers. And then I don't know if you noticed, but Herbert kind of went under the radar. Not the greatest year last year. Guess what? He was the OC of the Los Angeles Chargers. He's a little bit of a cancer, if you ask me.
it's kind of harsh.
I don't know. He's not Nathaniel Hackett. I don't think he'll be a Nathaniel Hackett, and that's a real worry for the Jets.
Well, we'll get into it.
Yeah,
we'll get into it, but I don't think it will.
That's the one thing I guess similar with Matt Nagy and the Chiefs, Joe Lombardi in the Broncos. That's the one thing I'd be worried about right now.
You know, it was interesting when Sean Payton got there. I remember seeing, press and people in media asking him all the assorted questions about Russell Wilson and everybody else on the team. Apparently, Russell Wilson last year had his own office at the facility.
Yeah.
And Sean Payton, literally, like the first week he's there, he's like, "No, everyone's in the locker room." Like, I think the 1 year, the Russell Wilson renaissance has arrived, and we're saved for the next 6 years. Like, no,
this guy was like a classic WWE character. Like, own office, like, don't talk to me. I'm wearing my sunglasses with my super hot wife.
Surprise birthday party.
I don't know what
the
she
team
does.
shows up. But like I think he rightfully is going to go in and like let's cool all that down and just get back to playing football. Good. And he had an interesting soundbite from one of the Fox pregame shows like during the season last year around the time where he was speculated to be at the Broncos. It was like they were like, "What would you do with Russell Wilson right now? How do you get him back on track?" Essentially, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but he was like, "I'd pull up every single bit of tape from him in the NFL, and I would look at all the plays that he's done well and make your playbook that." Pretty much. I mean, really, like it's like
that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it's like
when you think about
shit. Like, just like, what does he do well? Like, go back to that. Like, and unfortunately for him. I think a lot of the time when he was a stud in Seattle was because they were having a great running game. And then the running game in Seattle kind of overtook the passing game at a certain point. And then the whole Russ Cook shit started. And then he got traded. And it kind of, they let him cook and he was not cook very well.
He was cooking with like, I don't know. I don't cook a whole lot, so I can't think of a good analogy.
I wouldn't try.
He was cooking with dog shit with Nathaniel Hackett. So, yeah, I think the Broncos had a great offseason, though, all around. Chargers, feel like they didn't have a whole lot, but the most noticeable to me, bringing in Kellen Moore at OC.
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah,
right?
That's probably the biggest, most notable addition, I guess.
People were speculating that this guy would be a head coach about 2 years ago because of how well he had the Cowboys offense humming.
Yeah, he had a lot of chatter, and I think at one point people were even maybe thinking he might be the heir apparent in Dallas.
Yeah, because, I mean, they still have a boob running that show.
If that thing falls apart, I bet you his name comes up still.
Ooh, because I wouldn't be shocked.
Well, because he's in Jerry's club, right? He left to go,
expand a little bit.
Yeah.
He's working with a great offense, great quarterback, solid running game, but we don't know what's going to happen there.
Hopefully the whole Austin Eckler situation, apparently he wants a new deal. Apparently the Chargers are pulling another Melvin Gordon and being like, yeah, nah.
I mean, can you blame him?
No, I can't. But Austin Eckler has been special.
He has.
So
100%.
And it seems like he's, I don't know. He should be able to keep doing it. We'll see. But
yeah, I don't know.
Age hits these players out of nowhere, especially running back. So hard to say.
it's tough. It's tough. Austin Eckler, he's stayed healthy for like a majority of his career too. So, it will be real interesting to see if they can somehow work out a deal. But, to Eckler's point, he's got to get paid now, right?
Yeah, this is your window.
For this exact reason. Like you don't know how long it's going to last. I mean, you look at somebody like Ezekiel Elliott, who got paid and then maybe had maybe a year or two.
He declined every year after.
Immediately, and it was a noticeable decline. So,
still a free agent, by the way.
Still a free agent, by the way. So it'll be really interesting to see what they do with Eckler.
Chargers, most notable addition player wise, they do add Eric Kendricks from the Vikings, linebacker.
Yeah,
old as dirt.
Just to add on to Khalil Mack.
Yeah, well, Khalil Mack's still, a well above average comparatively, I would say.
The decline is coming in there too.
Yeah,
that's extremely noticeable. Although he did, when he peaked, right? I mean, the guy was an absolute monster at Chicago for 2 years, and then really started to go downhill. So I don't know. Overall, I don't think there's a whole lot that you need to change with this team. You just need to A, hopefully stay healthy, and B, not coach like you have your head up your ass.
I think they in the draft they take Quinn Johnston from TCU.
That was a great ad too, because their wide receivers
always banged up,
cannot stay healthy for the life of them.
And Herbert's still really young. You're going to want to have a guy paired up with him for a while, so I think that's a good investment. Keenan Allen's sneaky old. I mean, the dude's 30, 31. He's actually pretty old.
Very, very sneaky old. And Mike Williams,
good,
young.
Getting up there too.
Yeah, exactly. Young, but he can't stay healthy and he can't stay consistent. You need to make a pivot. You need to bring somebody in. Quentin Johnson is very similar to Mike Williams, so that will be really interesting to see how those two kind of play together. Al, let's quickly do our rankings.
Okay.
I have Broncos finishing first.
I'd agree.
Chiefs second.
I'll say Chargers second.
Chargers third.
No, you know what? You're right. Chiefs second. You're right. So I'm aligned with you.
What I said?
Yeah.
I'm having a glass of wine, folks. Memory's starting.
Broncos 1, Chargers 2, Chiefs 2, Chargers 3.
Chargers 3. Raiders 4.
No surprise.
Pretty self-explanatory.
I do wonder if another, football talk show is looking at this. Are they looking at the Raiders the same way as we are? Is all of America's opinion the same as ours?
Probably not, because they don't have that Lions lens on them, and that's the big thing.
Well, speaking of the Lions,
let's get into it.
Let's go Lions!
Okay, Al, we're talking Lions draft now.
Is this why you brought wine?
No, believe it or not.
Let's get nice and toasted wine slosh to talk about Lions first round.
It might bring a little bit out of me, so we'll have to wait and see. But
if you want to know what we're about cutting it loose.
The Lions started with these picks. I want you to guess on how many we actually used. 6, 18, 48, 55, 81, 152, 183.
You're gonna make me look like a fool on the air, but I think we only used 2 of them, I believe.
Well, you're not looking like a fool, because we only used 1 of them.
18, right?
We used 18. Yeah. That was it. Yeah. We made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We made 6 trades. We traded number 12. We traded 6 for 12 and 34. We traded 48 and 159 for 45. We traded 55 and 194 for 63, 122, and 249. And then we traded 63 and 183 for 68 and 139. And then we traded 122, 138, 168 for 96. And then we traded DeAndre Swift and 249 for 219 and a 2025 fourth round pick.
Very busy.
Brad Holmes was busy. Here's what we ended up with in the draft. We ended up with Jahmyr Gibbs at 12, a first-round pick. We ended up with Jack Campbell at linebacker at 18, first-round pick. We ended up with the tight end Sam Laporta at 34 in the second round. We ended up with Brian Branch at 45, the safety from Alabama, in the second round. Ended up with Hendon Hooker at 68 in the third, quarterback out of Tennessee. Broderick Martin, the defensive tackle, at 96 in the third round, out of Western Kentucky. And then I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. I can't say that I watched the last day of the draft, but we had Colby Sorsdahl, the offensive tackle, in the fifth round at 158. No, 150. Yeah, 158, I believe. And then Antonio Green, the wide receiver, at 219 in the seventh. Dust has settled. Al can attest, I was not happy with the first round.
No.
I was looking at it from a pure analytical standpoint, where we don't value running backs and linebackers. The second round was a little bit better, but not by much. If you listen to last week's episode, you would know that I don't value tight ends very well, especially in our offense. So the fact that we took one at 34, I was reeling at this point. Brian Branch was a great addition. The fact that we got him at 45 is absurd.
Yeah, he could have been one of our first rounders, and people would have been, yeah, all right, Brian Branch.
I mean, it would have been completely flip-flop if you substituted Branch at 12 and Gibbs at 45. So, well, not completely, but somewhat.
Well, okay. I'm going to let you finish here because I do have many thoughts on each of these picks, but
with the dust settled, here's how I'm coping with this at this point. Put the picks and the rounds aside. They got a top 2 prospect in running back. They got the number 1 prospect on a linebacker in a draft class that was dog shit after not dog shit, but not great after the first linebacker. They got a top 3 tight end prospect
from the tight end factory.
It still doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, and I'll get into that a little bit later. They got the number 1 safety prospect.
Way late. But you're saying put aside the picks.
Put aside the picks. And they have a possible future starter and quarterback, if not a possible good backup, with their first 5 picks in the first 3 rounds. That's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, which when you hear everyone saying the Lions have 5 picks in the top 80 whatever picks,
yeah,
that's what you want to hear.
Yeah,
I mean that they got top skill players in each of the spots they drafted, and let's just rip the Band-Aid off here. I think Jahmyr Gibbs sent everybody into a spiral, and not just in our viewing experience watching the draft. Everyone on social media, freaking out. Lions fans and NFL fans both.
I mean, we were the laughing stock after the first night, taking a running back and a linebacker in the first round, and what everybody considered a huge reach on both.
Now, I will say this. Apparently, it sounds like Brad Holmes allegedly received texts from various people, GMs, whoever plugged in, saying that they had waited, that they were going to move up and get Jahmyr Gibbs, and that he would not have been there at 18 for them to take.
The big rumor is that the Jets were going to take him at 15. Now, there's a couple ways to look at this. And I'm
not saying that forgives everything value-wise, but if you do want to look at it like, if you really wanted this guy,
you had to take him.
That was your only opportunity to do it. And, you clearly wanted him specifically because you also could have taken Bijan Robinson and not moved.
Yeah.
if he really wanted to just get a top back, but they wanted Jahmyr Gibbs specifically. And I think him as a pass catcher is a huge part of it.
Yes. Massive part of it.
I'll let you go. I've been holding you back for a couple seconds here, but I'll just leave it at this. I'm fine with the pick. I'm fine with it.
The whole Brad Holmes coming out and saying that he wasn't going to be there at 18 is, I don't know. I don't know if I would even addressed that, to be honest with you, because
that's your biggest defense. I don't know why you wouldn't.
The biggest rumor is that the Jets were going to take him at 15, right?
With the trade itself to move back to 12 too,
yeah,
they did not get, a bag for it.
No, they didn't.
They did get ammo, and it wasn't
34.
It wasn't a total, debauchery of a trade, but they did not for trading out of 6, where you could have had Jalen Carter, Tyree Wilson, Bijan Robinson, all these
a lot of great names,
high-end draft talent. Your pick at corner or receiver if you wanted it.
Yeah.
You'd hope for a little bit more, and I think to see them move back and then take a extreme luxury pick who nobody thought was even going to be a first-round factor was just a very jarring move. Overall.
That's why I think he's saying this. But the Jets were taking offensive tackle up until the Steelers traded up to go get him. And
that's post the trade.
Even post trade, it's really interesting that they say that, considering that they have Breece Hall. And I know that every team now is kind of trying to get this stable of running backs, where you had the power, you had the speed.
Detroit's doing the same thing. I mean,
absolutely.
Sure.
But again, I don't know if the Jets would have used 15 to go get Gibbs. I don't know. That whole thing sounds a little bit fugazi to me. But bringing back my point from the first segment, Jahmyr Gibbs has a lot on his plate now. To me, Jahmyr Gibbs needs to put up an offensive rookie of the year type season.
Don't you think he's put in a spot where that could definitely be the case?
My point exactly. He was just given the world. He has
possibly the best O-line in the league.
Possibly the best offensive line in the league. He has an offensive coordinator who is extremely creative and will use him in many different spots, including the slot. He's got a good passing game, so they're not going to be loading the box. He has everything that he needs. He has another running back that is going to take.
Going to mention him.
All the ground and pound, so that he can be, Mr. Flash.
He's not. Yeah, he's not even going to be your 1A.
No,
Montgomery's going to be 1A between the tackles, ground and pound. That's going to be him.
Right. So he's going to be taking the brunt of the load. He needs to come in, and Jahmyr Gibbs needs to light the league on fire.
Yeah, I said a little light bulb pop up in my head here. You know what he could potentially be if you really want to lean into him as a pass catcher and putting him all over the place?
Kamara?
No. Well, I guess Kamara is a good example, but he could kind of be your inverse Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel is a receiver, but you flex him in and back, and you get really creative with him. You're kind of doing the opposite with him potentially. And I guess Kamara is probably a better example, but
I don't know.
It's interesting.
Because he lined up in slot at Alabama a lot. And I think that's another reason why people are saying that this is a good pick, is because, obviously with J-Mo being out, we're going to need more wide receivers. And they think that Jahmyr Gibbs can fill that hole. And if he can, that's great. I'm not just looking for somebody who's going to get 1,800 yards on the ground. We need to be able to move the ball through the air as well. So if he's able to help out in the passing game too, and be better than Swift, which after last year,
it doesn't take much.
After the first 4 weeks, the appeal kind of wore off because he was injured every other week. And even when he was healthy, the guy couldn't hit a hole to save his life.
Here's what I think you can say about Gibbs and Jack Campbell, both of them. Them having to be immediately day one
Oh.
impact players. Look, the thing with this team right now is that last year you came out and you looked like you were just going to have a repeat of the year before. Bottom team, things were starting off rough, but then you turned the corner of all corners and go on an absolute tear and end the year on an extremely high note and promising note. You got to come out this year running.
Yeah.
You cannot. And the Jameson Williams suspension is huge. That is huge that he's missing 6 weeks. Because this year, coming into this year, he's wide receiver 1. I think he is over
1B.
Amon Ra. I think
1B.
he is. All right, you can say 1A, 1B. But
Amon is the guy right now.
Until J-Mo
proven
gets
otherwise, even starting this season, until proven otherwise, Amon's the guy because Amon's the one picking up third downs, right?
But you can't afford to get off to a slow start where
No.
you're 2-4. You just can't do
definitely
that this year. This is a window for you to go make some noise.
Yep.
So both these picks scream, okay, we're covering our bases for what we need right now this year, immediate impact guys. And I don't know if all the draft nicks and all the people, I'm not trying to defend Brad Holmes blindly either, but like, just because it doesn't make sense on a draft grade, the Lions get a C- report card in the draft or whatever. Like, does it really matter if their team needs and like areas are beefed up to help them just like get off the ground running? That's kind of what we want this year.
Yeah. No, I mean, that is a great point out. Their next 2 picks also show that. They add in Sam Laporta at tight end from Iowa. Personally, so you might notice a theme here with the first 4 picks. It went Alabama, Iowa, Alabama. Here's the other thing about how Brad Holmes drafts, in my opinion. He doesn't give a flying fuck about draft boards or anything of the sort. He drafts guys, a lot of guys, not only based off their talent, but a lot of it also based on their character. He is filling the Dan Campbell fit. And
Spielman's part of that too.
Spielman's a part of that too. But you'll notice guys coming out of Iowa and Alabama, they're team leaders. I'm guaranteeing you, Jack Campbell, 100% team leader. Laporta, probably a leader on that god-awful offense that Iowa had last year, to the point where he's able to still shine. Brian Branch, 100% a leader on the defense. Gibbs, maybe not so much a leader on the offense, but
special.
But
special player.
But special player. And if you go to Alabama and you go to Iowa, I don't know, there's like a character trait about you where you know that player is going to go to work. That player is going to come in. It's no nonsense. It's no bullshit. They can have fun, but when it's time to work, it's time to work. So there's clearly a fit that players need to fill for Brad Holmes to be like, okay, that's our guy.
I love that, first off.
Yeah.
Let's pivot here to the second most interesting pick to me on this whole draft outside of Jahmyr Gibbs. Hendon Hooker, 3rd round pick. He's a guy that some people leading up to the draft thought he might sneak into the 1st round late, because the quarterback gold rush is always crazy. You never know how it's really going to go. This last 2 years, though, has been a little bit of a pulling back on that, which has been interesting. But
I don't know. This one had the gold rush in the first 4 picks, right?
He goes in the 3rd round, and he joins, the Lions as a 25, going to be 26-year-old rookie.
Goff is only 2 years older than him.
Coming off an ACL.
Not great.
Coming off of a really good season until then.
Heisman finalist, possibly Heisman favorite before he went down with the ACL tear.
And his only competition for the backup role is Nate Sudfeld.
So he'll be the backup.
Well, maybe, I don't know, to start the year, depends where his injury's at.
Yeah.
But eventually, yeah, no-brainer backup. But the question is that conversation's already starting about it. Jared Goff has 2 years left on his deal. Is this an insurance policy? Is this the guy you're going to develop post Jared Goff, or are you really going to give Goff a real contract and a chance to stick around here for a while? And I think it's super interesting storyline going into this year.
2 years left on the contract. I think it all comes down to this year, right?
For sure, because you see it all the time with guys when their deals are expiring, they rip it up and extend. So,
so Hendon Hooker, this was the value pick, right? This was at this point, like, he is too good of a prospect to pass up.
They do trade up to get him.
Him and the next pick, Broderick Martin, who we'll get into. So I don't hate it. He led a very prolific passing offense at Tennessee, while they had a very dog shit defense at Tennessee. If you want case in point, just look at them versus Florida and them versus Alabama last year. He threw, I think, if I can remember correctly, I think he threw 68 touchdowns and 5 interceptions over the past 2 years. Insane numbers. So, again, this feels like a Campbell Holmes fit, right?
Yeah, apparently as just a human being, apparently he's also just an excellent dude off the field, which also tracks.
Exactly.
You know.
He's going to come in, he's going to work, he's going to rehab, he's going to get to 100%, and then we'll have to wait and see, because unless this season goes awry, they're not benching Goff for him.
And if you're coming back from last season with the momentum that you had at the end of the year, you've got pretty much everybody who was there, except for, everybody running back. You make some changes there. But same staffs, same weapons for the most part. Like, you're not expecting Goff to fall off a cliff. No. I mean, you're really not. The dude is consistently pretty good when he's got a good cast around him. I think that first year when he was here, really didn't have a lot of help for a lot of it, which is why you saw what you saw pretty early on. But the longer he's been here, the better he's been. So it will be interesting for him. Do you think he views them drafting Hooker as like they're putting some competition here, or do you think that he's like, nah, I just got to go work and whatever pans out here pans out, and I'm the starter. You know what I mean? Like,
I think it's a little bit more of column B. He probably views it more so not as competition, but as that insurance policy, where he's like, okay, I need to go out, I need to have a year, so they give me the bag, right? Or not the bag, but like
letting a fire under his butt, maybe a little bit. I don't know.
No, it's
but
not
like in
that.
a good way. Like in a good, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like how Belichick would prod Brady.
Yeah. I would say it's more so like that, right? But not in a negative way. Like, it's like, hey, Jared, your contract is coming up. You've been playing great. We don't know what the future holds. We got to have a backup plan.
Yeah. Well, that's the big thing that you can take away from this for right now is that they desperately need a backup quarterback.
Yeah.
Is third round draft pick a little rich for one, especially considering you might have to wait a little bit? Potentially, but not if it's a guy who had a first round grade on them. I mean, like
early second first.
You know what I mean? Like it's good value for, even despite his age and injury. I think it's still a good value. So I don't know if he develops into anything. I don't know. It sure is an interesting pick. I'm glad they just addressed the quarterback situation and made a move, and it's an interesting one. So I don't really know what to think about it on the whole yet, but I'm very interested in it. I'll leave it at that.
Did you want to go back and touch on Laporta and Branch? I mean,
yeah, sir. I just jumped right into it, but
that's fine. I mean, that was the important part.
Branch, I would say, huge steal.
Huge steal. It's going to be really interesting. Obviously, safety is a rotation kind of position. You know, the guys that are out there, but you look at that safety room now. Tracy Walker, who has been, I think, a captain of the team for the last 2 years, and maybe not as talented as the other players that are in there. Who knows? But Tracy Walker, Kirby Joseph, third-round pick from last year, who really came into his own at the end of the year last year. C.J. Gardner Johnson Jr., I don't think there's a junior at the end of that. I don't know why I threw that in there. But a very talented player from Philadelphia comes in on a 1-year deal. And now you have Brian Branch as well. Loaded safety room. So Branch probably not getting as much playing time, but getting a lot of experience playing behind these guys.
When you're that deep, what do you think the odds are that maybe they line someone like Branch up at like playing some corner, you know?
So I think
that's been a sore spot, and I think they had a good offseason with it, but it's still not something figured out long term quite yet.
So I think the spot that you're probably referring to is known as the nickelback, who's kind of playing in that slot position. And I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe CJ Gardner Johnson, Jr.
There's no junior.
I believe he played a little bit of that at New Orleans. Is that where he came from?
New Orleans, then Philly.
New Orleans, then Philly. Yep. I believe he played a little bit of that there and was good at it. And then he went to Philadelphia and started filling in at safety. So I think he can play a little bit of that. I think Branch can play a little bit of that. So I would not be shocked if they started kind of rotating them in there as well. We also made a lot of additions on corner this offseason. So there's room for improvement there too. The secondary is
I'm just
probably
thinking of like a Will Harris. You saw him last year, kind of.
God.
I know, but
Don't remind me.
But yeah, you saw him kind of being put in that spot a little bit, and just because I don't know, maybe it's an area that you have a lot of depth in. And you want to see what you have with them as corner. I don't know.
I would say that the secondary is easily the group that has gotten the biggest overhaul.
Needed it.
And
desperately.
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
Rightfully so. Laporta, here's the thing I don't understand about it. This guy isn't a great blocker, which was
what you didn't want.
Campbell's biggest gripe with him, with the last Iowa tight end that we drafted. Here's what it's going to take for me to accept this pick as a good pick, because right now I don't love it. This is the one that I cannot get behind. Ben is just going to have to draw up some shit where we can get this guy the ball. Because it's time and time again where, like we went through how many years? 3 years of Hawk? Where we're like, we got this stud at tight end, but why doesn't he produce at the level we know he can produce consistently? And 1 year, there's no wide receivers on the field that can catch, so they're going to berate him. And then we bring him on, and we bring in DJ Chark, and we bring in all these other guys, and he still can't consistently produce. He has these one-offs where he's a stud, and then the next week he's 2 catches for 8 yards.
Yeah, I hear you, but like my whole point, not to rehash last week too much, but my whole point was just like you can't just not address this position and not have a like Zylstra and
Brock Wright,
like they're fine. They're fine role players, but they are not above average. You need to at least have one above average guy on the depth chart in today's NFL.
The one thing that's aiding this is that idea that they just need more pass catchers.
Because
of J-Mo.
Right? Yeah, he's not the only reason. I mean, like, you want to have a bunch of weapons.
Yeah,
I mean, the best offense in the league Chiefs excluded, I guess now, but I don't know. You have to load up, especially with a quarterback like Goff who's not Patrick Mahomes. You want to give him options. You want to have a good run game, good blocking. I get it. I understand. Is the value a little high? Yeah, maybe, because I don't think we are a tight end centric offense. I don't think we are that. I think we're a run game first and foremost, and then receivers. But I don't know.
So I hope we get just creative with him, much like how we did with Hawk. And he's not just another red zone target.
Yeah, I feel like the comparisons to him are going to be a little unfair because same school, obviously, and then also the highest draft pick on one since him. So
I would say that favors him, because I don't know why people look so fondly on Hawk. I
think
really
they do.
don't.
I think that when he was here, they were, but I think now he's gone. I think it's kind of like who? A little
It's
bit.
I don't think it's like who. It's like we traded him to a division rival. He has a couple good games with them, and he's a good tight end. But like again, our offense just doesn't use tight ends to a level that the Patriots or the Chiefs or any other team uses them. Like we use tight ends for blocking, and we use them for play action in the red zone.
But you know what? You might one day stumble upon your George Kittle, and you might have a guy who you can pivot to being that.
That was the other one. Yeah.
You want to touch on the later round guys real quick? Just
I can touch on Broderick Martin, and I can say a couple sentences on him.
All right, I'll let you do that.
After hearing that we traded up back in '96, after I had turned the draft off because I thought we were done for the night, rookie mistake, I know. I did not know what to expect at '96 because that's roughly where I fall out of touch. But the fact that we took a defensive tackle was extremely reassuring to me because I felt, as a fan, neglected by Brad Holmes over the first 2 days. I don't know about you, Al, but being the biggest need, in my opinion, being defensive tackle, I was waiting for it. And after looking him up, I ain't too upset. I think he is 6'5", 340. He is
Big boy.
A mountain of a man. Just a big boy. So I'm not upset about it. I'm excited to watch him play.
And he doesn't have to come in and be wrecking ball day one. He's got some
Bugs,
support
McNeil,
there,
and somebody else that I'm blanking on at the moment. So yeah, that's kind of my opinion. Unfortunately, I don't know anything about the next two guys, but it's a wide receiver and offensive tackle, so they'll be playing behind other players for a while, I would assume.
Let me just say one last thing to put a bow on the Lions draft.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think looking back at this draft, at least for me, I'm going to look at it like I'm going to look at Philly's haul from round one and your haul from round one. In hindsight, you could have stayed at 6, gotten Jalen Carter, and you could have got Nolan Smith, but you went a different direction and you did something that no one thought you were going to do in round one. So I don't know. Everyone's kind of saying Philly was the crown jewel team of the draft. Great draft, especially round one. Loaded up in some key areas with studs, and that could have been you without moving. So I'm just kind of curious how that will pan out historically speaking. But I really do like the class on the whole. I think these guys are all going to be impact players pretty quick, except for the guys in the later rounds because it's just depth picks at that point, like Hendon Hooker too. But yeah, I think a good draft overall.
Let me reiterate my last point because I didn't get to touch on it. You heard it last week. I love Jack Campbell. Did we reach on him? Sure. But when you get down to it, that's a player that I wanted, and they went out and got him. So I can't be too upset about it.
And can you really get that mad when it's like, what, was he going to go 15 picks later? I mean, who cares?
He's going early 30s, probably mid 30s. So, yeah, like they probably weren't going to get him if they didn't take him there. This team, I've been saying it for years, I yearn for good linebackers. We got one last year, Malcolm Rodriguez, who he's probably my favorite player on the team. And if they're able to add in another one where they have 2 stud linebackers that are calling the shots on the defense, getting the defensive line in the right positions, finding out what the offense is running, being leaders on defense.
And you got Hutch just mauling up.
And then you got Hutch just running wild. You got Pascal, Okora, Houston. It doesn't matter on the other side. Just another animal that you drafted on the other side playing. And then you got these guys, kind of plugging holes. Campbell running on a blitz every once in a while. I mean, it's going to look fantastic. So very, very happy with that. But with all that being said, how do you overall, let's I don't want to say grade the draft, but let's sum it up into one word. How do you feel about it?
Interesting. It's an interesting draft.
That's a good way to sum it up. I like that. I'm gonna say intriguing.
Yeah, it's same sort of vibe. But,
same exact
word.
But
it's
different. I feel like that is really the best way to sum it up.
I like intriguing even more.
Yeah, because it's a fancier word.
So.
It's just like it's going to be really interesting to see these first 4 picks play, because those 4 picks could make or break the team, in my opinion. So, what do you say we close it out? All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for us. Thank you again for listening to another episode of Gridiron Zero's podcast. Excuse me.
Hashtag wine burp.
Yeah. Be sure to follow us on Twitter. Be sure to follow us on TikTok at Gridiron Zeros. Be sure to check us out on YouTube. We're going to be getting a lot more active on social media here in the next couple of months.
That time of the year where we ramp back up. So
yep.
Season 3.
Season 3. I think this could be. We're almost aligned with the Lions, right? We're hitting our stride here in season 3. So.
I wonder how many of the listeners have been around since the implosion that happened.
Most frustrating
era
of Lions talk.
One of the worst years to sit through, and then now we're kind of here, and things are looking bright.
Things are looking a lot bright. It was a quick turnaround. How about that?
Actually, yeah, it was pretty quick.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, be sure no lock of the week this week. Obviously, there's nothing going on.
Next week is AFC East.
Yeah, we'll do the AFC East next week.
Recap.
Maybe we'll get a little fancy with it. Maybe we'll come prepared with an NHL or NBA playoff pick for lock of the week next week. Who knows? But we won't count that towards the season. Just to recap real quick on last week's, we went 2-1. Al hit Richardson in the top 5. Judd hit Bijan in the top 10. The only one who missed was yours truly with Carter in the top 5.
Give me money. Money me. Money now.
It was very unfortunate. So starting the year off 2-1, not bad. And we'll continue to build on it from there once the season actually kicks around.
Get those preseason reps in.
Yep, absolutely. All right, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to what do I usually say?
Make good choices, good decisions.
Thank you, Al. God.
Because we're best friends. I love you, my dude.
Good choices, good decisions, ladies and gentlemen. We'll catch you on the next one.
Later.